If you're looking to make solar simple, give Ron Domenico with AD Energy a call. All-day energy made simple. Solar solutions with zero down, options to lease or finance, and roofs and trees are no issue. Call Ron Domenico at 609-226-2802 and tell him you saw him on the Sports Box.
Well, hello again, and welcome to the show that's not too tart and not too sweet. This is the Sports Box, the only opinion that matters. It's right here. I am Mike Galetta, a.k.a. Hamilton Mike, along with my partner, Brian, the Ranger of Tart. Brian, how are you today?
I'm fantastic. I think if I have to choose a word to describe my mood today, I'm going to go ahead and dig deep into the vocab bag and pick out the word glorious.
Oh, my God. That's kind of like the internet service I just got in my house now. Thanks to Brian Tart, by the way.
That's what I do.
That's beautiful. It's a moment, folks. Anyway, let's talk about after the draft. The 2017 draft has come and gone. We've 10 burning questions for you that I'm sure everybody out there is dying to hear. Brian, let's start breaking them down.
Well, let's head on over to Cleveland, Ohio, the football hotbed that it is.
Yep.
Did the Cleveland Browns hands down win this draft?
Absolutely. I think the Browns hit a home run. Now, whether that's to be seen or not, whether these players work out, you look on paper, Brian, what they did. Obviously you couldn't screw up. Well, they probably could have, but you take Myles Garrett, defensive end out of Texas A&M first. Guy's a stud, high motor. It's going to get him some push. Then they move out of the 12 spot and down to 25 and get Jabril Peppers, the safety out of Michigan. That's a phenomenal pick, because here's a team, and I've said it before about the Browns, they need to start building this team instead of trying to get the home run play. They need to start building it and take some time to get players in place. You look at them in round, they trade back into the first round and get David Njoku from tight end from Miami, 8 touchdowns in one season at 868 yards. Here's a tight end that can make some noise, folks. He might not be O.J. Howard, but he's a good tight end for you. I don't like round 2. They took Deshaun Kaiser, but we'll see. Not a good arm. A little rough with Notre Dame. Had a bad year. And then the last one I'll talk about is round 4. Howard Wilson, quarterback out of Houston. Hurt in 2015, but 5 interceptions in 2016. Some issues with some guys down the road, but absolutely, Cleveland had a good draft.
Listen, they ended up with 3 first-round picks.
Yeah.
They added a first next season. That's 5 first-round picks in 2 years. The Garrett pick, we both speculated that they probably were going to go that way.
Yep.
But they could have screwed that up. And we're going to get to that later on in the question.
They had to go Myles Garrett.
Absolutely.
There's no way around that.
No, 110%.
Yep.
To get probably the best pure athlete in the draft in Jabril Peppers, I thought was really nice.
It was a good move. And they moved down to get him.
Yes.
And they didn't have to do anything.
And they added that pick later.
Yep.
And they ended up with I call him David North Korea. David Njoku, whatever. Dave, I love you. Listen, we speculated that they might get O.J. Howard at 12.
Yep.
But we thought that they needed to add offensive playmakers for whoever they were going to have a quarterback to have an easier road about it. Mm-hmm. They ended up getting David Njoku at 29.
Yep.
Can you be upset with that? No. They're adding playmakers, and that's a guy who's going to be a tight end for this team for a while.
Second tight end on the board. That was rated highly.
Yeah.
Played for Miami, and again, Miami they had an okay year. Mm-hmm. Here's a guy with 8 touchdowns and 869 yards for a college tight end. That's a pretty good start right there. I mean, he's gonna need some work, but that's fine.
I don't mind the Kaiser pick at all. I'm gonna tell you why. Because they still don't have an answer there. So I think the more ammo you put into that spot to try to find an answer, the better off that you are. Kaiser could have been a first round, but obviously you go through the year and people go up and fall, all the time. Kaiser could have been easily a first round pick in this draft.
I think Brad Kaya could have been a better pick for you there. I know he went to Detroit, but in the same sense, I think Kaya has a little bit better arm. He's got more understanding of the game, whereas to Kaiser, if you look at his mistakes he's made, he's underthrown guys, can't throw on a run, he's throwing off his back foot. I mean, look, I could be wrong. They could make him be a better quarterback in the NFL, and he's not ready this year. He's going to be ready maybe next year, the year after. But for a guy who's drafted that kind of high to me is not a good pick because he's not ready to go.
But they're doing a lot, Mike.
Oh, yeah.
Listen, they're reshaping this team in a big way. A couple more drafts like this, we're not going to be talking about those, bumbling Browns. I got to tell you, I'm very impressed.
But see, here's the big thing with Cleveland. Not only do they have to draft well, they have to put the free agents together, and they have to put this team together. It's going to be a long road, Cleveland fans, but you know what? If they do it right, 2 to 3 years, you're going to be back in the fold again. But again, this hasn't happened in a while. Let's see if it happens. But excellent draft for Cleveland.
So we're going to go to opposite spectrums of the draft. Well, we both agree the Browns had a great draft.
Oh my God.
What on earth are the Bears thinking?
I'll tell you what, we talked about it before. John Lynch is a freaking genius. Here's a guy who's only been in the office this year for GM for San Francisco and bamboozled the Chicago Bears to give out 3 picks and move up 1 spot for a guy they weren't even going to take. For a guy who's played 13 games. Are you freaking kidding me? What in God's name is Chicago thinking by making this move? I don't understand.
Well, here's my problem with the whole thing, right? I understand the deal itself. I understand the deal itself, and we're going to go ahead and kind of summarize this for you. So, the Bears received the number 2 overall pick in the draft. In exchange, they gave up number 3, which is 1 pick later.
Yep.
A 3rd-round pick this year.
Yep.
A 4th-round pick this year.
Yep.
And a 3rd-round pick next year.
For a guy that played 13 games.
Well,
in the ACC.
We'll talk about Trubisky in a second, what they used the pick for.
Yeah.
I think from the 49ers standpoint, they put a little bit of poker here. I think that,
I'm sure they did,
and we'll never know, but I think that there may have been something on the table where I don't think anybody thought the Niners would take Trubisky. What I think the Bears thought was they were going to let somebody else jump
in front of them
to get Trubisky.
Right, John Lynch could have told them, listen, Cleveland's been calling me, they're going to move up to number 2, can you guys do anything? And Chicago panicked and said, let's get to number 3, let's bring up number 2, let's take our guy. I agree.
That's probably what happened. Now, on this show, you will recall that we were both very surprised that the Chicago Bears gave Mike Glennon a 3-year deal, $45 million, and $18 million of that guaranteed.
Yep.
Then they decided their biggest need is a quarterback.
So you gave a guy a ton of money and hurt your salary cap to bring in another guy at number 2 who probably is going to back him up.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen then, honestly.
I think he's got it back. Glennon might not be a good quarterback. He might be a career backup. But for number 1, for the money you gave him, for the experience he has, he's got to start right now in front of Trubisky. He's got to. Trubisky's played 13 games. I don't understand the big hype for this guy. I know he's an Ohio kid. He's got everything going for him. He's a good, clean kid and all. But how is he in front of guys like Deshaun Foster, Mahomes, guys like that have played in 2 or 3 years and even 4 years of their college career? I don't understand. And like you said, it's a mystery to me why Chicago panicked.
Well, they seem to think that this kid's got it. And listen, it's their jobs on the line. You know, we talk a lot about in different sports how, you know, general managers are going to make moves on what's going to keep them in a job, basically. Yeah. You know, people will sign, in all sports, people will sign guys to 8-9 year deals because, well, if I don't win by year 3, I'm out the door anyway. So what do I care about the back end of this deal? With this one, I just don't know. There were questions about him coming into the draft, and we talk about even last year with Goff and Wentz, and obviously to a lesser extent Carson Wentz, but these guys get higher positions based on the fact that quarterback is the most important position on the field.
Yep.
It's not that though Trubisky was the second best player in this draft. I don't think anybody would say that. Mm-hmm. But when you have a team that needs that position, specifically that one, the urgency is there to go get that one because once you have that one, everything kind of grows from there. I just don't know that Trubisky's going to be that guy.
When they move to that spot and you look at, okay, well, maybe they're going to take Solomon Thomas. Maybe they like this guy. They're going to move up again. Which wouldn't have been a bad play for them, to be honest with you. Would it have been a 100% need? No, probably not. But there's a guy who's best available on the board that can help that team now and can step in and play. You now cause a little bit of controversy, and if you wanted to cause it, you're going to. Sign a guy for $45 million who was a backup, and you expect to play, and then all of a sudden you bring in Trubisky, move up to get him, and trade some of your future for him. So I don't understand it at all. Of all the things that the Bears need to make that move is kind of
that's my point.
Yeah.
I mean, they recoup some of those picks later. Neither here nor there. Yeah. I just think that when you look at that team, bigger issues than quarterback. And again, quarterback's very important, but you got to think they saw something in Mike Glennon to give him the keys to the car.
But you're also building a team, even if it's the Bears or if it's the Patriots or anybody out there, you got to hit on the first couple rounds. You have to hit to build the team better. To miss on a pick in the first round at number 2 and Trubisky stay and he's not ready to play in 2-3 seasons, I mean, this is going to set your team back major. You miss in the 3rd or 4th round, okay, big deal. But you miss in the 2nd overall pick, and I don't know. I think it's a terrible move by the Bears, to be honest with you. I still don't know what the hell they're doing.
It remains to be seen. But as we get into our question 3, kind of a connected question.
Yep.
Did the Chiefs and Texans overpay to move up for the quarterbacks that they took?
I think the Chiefs moving 17 spots to get Mahomes was crazy. We had him in our mock draft going to the Texans, and I thought that was a good spot for him, around 17 to 20. But for the Chiefs to jump all the way up there to grab him, I know the kid's got a big arm. He's a smart kid, things like that. I just think it's a huge risk, and you're giving up a lot for a guy who's going to play behind Alex Smith for probably the first year or two. Alex Smith is on his way out, but I think Alex Smith starts this year, and I think Mahomes plays behind him. Whether he starts or not, I don't think so. And on the other side with Texas, I think they got a great deal. Deshaun Watson was my number one guy on the board. My number one quarterback on the board. I think he's going to be a great player with them. With DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, that's a perfect fit with him.
Well, let me start with the Chiefs. Now, the Chiefs were 12-4 last year.
I
They won their
understand.
division. They hosted a playoff game. They didn't win it.
Yep.
But was quarterback really your biggest need?
No.
So you look at a team that's like right there, and they've been like right there for a couple of years.
And you don't get a piece that's going to help you.
Right, and not only that, like you said, the deal that they made
Yep.
to move up, that was not an inexpensive deal. They gave up their first round this year to move, obviously 27-10.
Yep.
A third round pick this year, pick 91, and their first round pick next year.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot for a kid that it had a good year at Texas Tech. Again, his attribute for him, they hear from everybody's big arm. A big arm, can throw on the run, smart kid, things like that. That's great. But again, like you said, Brian, they're 12-4. Quarterback wasn't the issue last year.
Yeah,
It really wasn't.
Teams are. Listen, I've always said that Alex Smith it's like the outcomes are like this, right? It's either like it's very like not a lot of risk in him. He's not going to take risks to maybe turn over the ball. Not going to try to go make a crazy play, risking very anti Tony Romo, if you will. You kind of see that correlation. But that wasn't their problem.
If anything, I'd probably want offensive line if I were them.
Yeah,
you're going to protect Alex Smith for a little bit, then maybe get a quarterback in the second round.
And I don't know about Mahomes myself. I thought he would go later.
I don't know. You move up to number 10 to get him. I mean, that when I saw that pick, I was like, wow.
Now the team that I thought would take Mahomes was the Houston Texans, who again, now their trade kind of similar here. They went up from 25 to 12.
They needed a quarterback. There's a need for them, and they knew they had to get somebody. I think.
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that at all. But again, no, they give up their first round pick next year.
That's fine.
So basically 2 firsts
for
Deshaun Watson.
Right, but you look at a guy with Deshaun Watson, here's a guy who's won a national title, has been there twice, has the attributes, has played in the SEC, and he's got a lot of things going for him that shows he could play in the NFL. That's why I don't understand out of the 3 quarterbacks that were on the board, Trubisky, Deshaun Watson, and Mahomes, Watson wasn't even in the play for number 1. I couldn't believe that. Coming in this year, I thought he was going to be a top 3 pick, but I think Texas got a steal with Deshaun Watson and the firepower they have on offense with the running back situation there, and then you got DeAndre Hopkins. I think it's a good fit. He could slide right in there and play right now.
It's a lot to give up.
Yep.
But as I've said in the past, and I'll say again, if you get that position done with a franchise guy for 10, 12 years, guess what? The price is irrelevant. That is the hard position in football to really lock in.
Yep.
We keep trying to make quarterbacks better than they are because there's just so few that are actually good.
And Texas and Houston had to get it right because they just got rid of Osweiler.
No,
and you can't start the season with Savage. We said that
they've been trying to find a quarterback for 15 years.
Yep.
So I understand why they would do this. I do think it's a touch, but again, I mean, listen, Browns again winning the draft.
Go Deshaun.
Winning the draft. Question number 4. Did the Bengals need Joe Mixon and everything that comes with Joe Mixon?
I don't think they did. You talk about how many more running backs are going to get there. I just think that puts a lot of pressure on Jeremy Hill to get out of here now because he's got 1 year left on his deal. They like Giovanni Bernard. He's fine there. You add Mixon to the fold. Easier to get Jeremy Hill out of there because he's got 1 year left on his deal. Easier maybe to trade him. I think he's on his way out, personally.
If you think of teams in the NFL that don't mind the off-the-field type stuff, I mean, a couple come to mind quickly. Dallas, I know, doesn't care.
No.
Oakland, who ended up getting Gary and Conley later in the first round, which I thought was a double-edged sword kind of pick, given where he was. And Cincinnati is one of those teams as well. I mean, there are people who believe that Joe Mixon was the most talented running back in this draft. So to get him at where they got him, the 16th pick of the second round, I get it. I mean, that's a risk worth taking. My only question is, and we talked about this too, was that really the biggest need that this team had? And I
don't think it was.
Well, you look at where their numbers were last year, Mike. They were 13th on the ground rushing. So it wasn't as if that they were like a bottom 10 type team in
and
rushing
they also had
yards.
Bernard hurt for a little while too.
Sure. I don't know. I mean, again, because you have Bernard and because you have Hill, at least for this year, I just don't know that running back was their biggest need to be taking a second-round pick on it. Now, again, their defense was surprisingly good. They gave up the 8th fewest points per game in the league. But I still think that's what held them back last year. It's not really their offense. So, and again, the off-the-field type stuff with Joe Mixon, listen, I'm not going to say... What happened with Joe Mixon happened years ago. I'm not absolving the guy from it by any stretch. I think it's terrible. But at some point, you give the guy a second chance. Again,
some people would agree with you in that situation with domestic violence, but in the same sense, yeah.
No, I'm not condoning anything you did.
In the same sense, it was a while ago.
It was a kid.
It was a kid. And it happened. It was over. You see what happens from there. Maybe a different situation, but wasn't there a guy Tunsil that got drafted by Miami?
Narmi Tunsil.
Gas mask, marijuana thing. How did that turn out?
Well, he's fine.
He's a beast.
Yeah, he's doing just
Lloyd
fine.
Collins, how did he do with that whole thing when he got drafted late by Dallas?
Lyle Collins?
Lyle Collins.
Well, yeah. Well, that was a gift for the Cowboys. No, I get it. But
you got situations where off the field stuff matters, but it sometimes really doesn't. It's a different situation with Mixon, but in the same sense, like you said, second chance. Okay.
Well,
it happened a while ago.
But Randy Gregory now, what, 7th time? He's smoking that stuff. So
that's a little outrageous.
I get it. I'm not questioning the pick of a guy like Joe Mixon in the second round. I thought that a team would take there. It's just, do I think that this team that was their need to expend that pick on?
I don't.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think it was an absolute need. Like you said, I think they could have went on the defense side of the ball a little bit, considering there was a lot of defensive guys out there they could have taken.
Sure.
A lot of secondary guys too. They probably could have taken.
In a division.
Right.
With Pittsburgh and Baltimore, maybe an upcoming.
Because you're going to have Pac-Man Jones up in next year, I believe.
Another problem child.
But he's in the NFL and he's actually a good player. So you got him off the board next year, and then you lose another guy off the secondary for Cincinnati. Then you got to redraft to get it start the process over again. So yeah, like you said, I don't think it was a great need for them. It just tells me when they make that move that Jeremy Hill is on his way out.
Most likely.
That's what I
Most likely. And Cincinnati is actually featured in our number 5 burning question. Receivers went early in this draft, Mike. 3 in the top 10 to Tennessee, the Chargers, and the Bengals. Were they the right moves?
I'm going to give you all 3 real quick. Corey Davis, I think it's a great pick for Tennessee. Mike Williams, I'm surprised that they gave Phillip Rivers Mike Williams to throw to. I think that's an average move and a good move, but Phillip Rivers is on his way out, I think. And then John Ross to Cincinnati, that's a huge risk. I think it's a huge risk. I think he's going to be a good player. He's got the speed, but you remember back in the day in the draft, a guy named Hayward Bay had a great combine, moved up to number 8 with the Raiders. He wasn't even supposed to be in the second round. So is that the same scenario? I don't know. But I think the Corey Davis move was good. I think Mike Williams' move was good. I'm still out on John Ross.
So I'll address those in reverse.
Okay.
So Cincinnati ended up taking John Ross.
Yep.
Right? Here's my problem with that. You just used a decently high pick last year.
Yep.
On Tyler Boyd.
Yep.
Right. You already have AJ Green. Sorry, I'm losing my mind. It's one of those.
The other one, yeah.
Yeah. So now.
And you signed Brandon LaFell last year.
And you have LaFell, so you have your 3 guys.
Uh-huh.
A top 10 pick for John Ross.
And you also, it's a side note that you look at the depth chart right now. You have Cody Core, and you have 5 other guys. So they have 8 wide receivers before they took John Ross. So, like you said before, this draft is becoming a trend here. Was that the need for Cincinnati at the time? I think they were enamored by the speed. Mm-hmm. I think they were saying, there's another weapon we can give to Andy Dalton to get Andy Dalton over the hump, because he can't get over that freaking playoff hump, which boggles my mind. So there's another weapon you're giving him to try to get everything right again. It's a big risk.
Again, I like the player.
Mm-hmm. I just don't think it's the move.
3 deep at receiver.
That's what I'm saying.
Of all the things that you need.
Right. I don't think it's the right play for them as receiver.
Second, Mike Williams.
Yep.
Little fact check here. Mm-hmm. Where do you think the Chargers were last year in points against per game in the league? Now, mind you, there's 32 teams.
30.
30? Not too far off. 29. Sight unseen?
Yep.
Look at Mike dropping numbers there. I'm dropping knowledge.
All I do is drop knowledge.
Passing yards.
Yep.
What do you think they were in passing yards?
Probably in the top 10.
Yeah, figure like that. 8th.
Yeah, because they had it. You have a receiving core there with Inman, Keenan Allen, and Travis Benjamin. Their problem was injuries last year. Injuries really hurt them last year.
And Tyrell Williams.
A lot of injuries hurt them last year. So to add a weapon with Mike Williams, again, we talk about it. It's a good pick. He's a good player, but is the need there? The need's not there. You probably should have went to. A lot of these teams should have went to the defensive side of the ball. They got enamored by the wide receivers and the running backs and got nuts.
We had the Chargers going, I want to say Jamal Adams in our mock draft.
I had the guy Malik Hooker.
Something like it was definitely a secondary type guy, because they were absolutely dreadful in the secondary, and they're in a division again with passing offenses, like Oakland, for example, Oakland, Vegas, wherever they're going to be.
Yep.
Great player. You're not hurting that receiver though.
Yeah, you lost Eric Weedle a couple years ago. Excuse me, I always do that.
He's gonna come here and show up and say, "Get my name." Paul's gonna pump.
I love that. Get him on the show. Get on the show, Eric. But no, lost him. You never replaced him.
Yeah.
And there's a need. back there.
I think part of it too, call it what it is. I think it's offense that brings in the casual fan. And I think that this move to Los Angeles, they need to like kind of brand themselves.
Make a splash again.
You got it, yeah. As much as they can. But to me, I want to help Philip Rivers. Give him someone who can defend the other side of the ball. You want to help Philip Rivers. Don't make him go out there and have to, air it out all the time.
I kind of think it was too. There was a lot of offensive players this year with a lot of flash, and a lot of teams wanted to jump in on that. And like you said, be that team. And the Chargers are no example to the rule because they want to get a guy to come out to LA and make a big splash, like they tried with golf last year. So,
right,
how'd that work out? We'll see this year.
He's working out real well. The third team was the Tennessee Titans.
Yep.
In taking Corey Davis. Now, we both thought that receiver was a need here for the Titans. In our mock draft, we actually had them taking John Ross at that second pick in 18. Mm-hmm. Here's another team that did need help at receiver.
Rashad Matthews, Harry Douglas, Trey McBride, the aging Delaney Walker. There's a need there. That I think is a good pick.
Absolutely a need. No, I'm not contesting that they had a need.
Yep.
I would like to, and again, it's always revisionist history because no one will know.
You're thinking Mike Williams on.
Well, no, but they started the run on receivers.
Oh, absolutely.
So the question then becomes well, if you don't take him at 5, who's there for you at 18? And they ended with Adoree Jackson at 18. So they did fill a need on the corner side. They got a defensive player. But what I'm saying is, could you have gotten a better defensive player, and could a receiver still have been there for you at 18? Now, again, you'll never know the answer to that. But speaking hypothetically, I don't know. Because I don't know if any of these teams that would have gone receiver.
I think what Tennessee could have done is moved down a little bit. Moved down in the draft to maybe number 9. Picked up an extra pick and gotten one of the 3 receivers at number 9 or number 10. Like you said, you'll never know.
No, and they're in need. You know what? To give Mariota another playmaker, no question about it, that's a good idea. I just don't know that you couldn't have gotten a better defensive player. I know we had him taking Jonathan Allen. Jonathan Allen fell quite a bit in this draft to 17 to Washington.
It's hard to pass him up. I'm surprised he fell all the way down there. For a team that their defense was kind of middle of the road in an AFC that's getting better, in a division that's getting better, I don't know. Some guys look great. Speed kills.
No, I get it. I get it. I just would have thought John Ross may have been a better fit at 18 than Davis was at 5, but that I just think it's a matter of value there. Question number 6: the New York Football Giants had a gaping hole in their offensive line that they chose to ignore entirely. Why?
You see, I'm gonna defend the Giants a little bit. I think you ride it out. Their offensive line right now consists of Flowers, Pugh, Richburg, Jerry, and Hart. You got 17 years experience between the entire line. Is that a lot? No, absolutely not. It's not. It's a young line. But here's the thing. They'll grow together. You got Eli Manning back there who you need to protect, but in the same sense, you want this line to stay together, to flow together. You got Jerry on the line who's got 6 years experience, the most experience on the line. But you're going to have some bumps with these kids. I mean, it's a young offensive line. Do you want to bring another young guy in there, draft young, and keep starting the process over and over? I think you ride it out with this Giants line. I think it's fine.
The Giants draft as a whole really puzzled me. Mm-hmm. It puzzled me, and I want to kind of tell you why. So Evan Ingram at 23 at tight end.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know that he was anybody's first-round Raider. They took him over David Njoku, who went later in that draft. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we're going to get to O.J. Howard in a bit here, so he wasn't there for them.
Yeah. Egan's a pretty decent tight end out of Ole Miss.
Well, it gives Eli another weapon, and I'm fine with that. I mean, I tell you what, the Giants are going to create some serious matchup problems this year for anybody trying to defend them. With your pass catchers being Beckham and Brandon Marshall, with Sterling Shepard possibly in the slot, a guy like Ingram who can catch the ball very, very well.
I think Manning had a little play there, Ole Miss.
Maybe. But, again, their defense last year was fantastic. I mean, that was the reason they got to the playoffs. They were one of those teams that, that's really why they got there.
Yeah.
Dalvin Tomlinson, the second-round defensive tackle, I mean, the value was there, but was that a need?
They weren't diving real deep into that. I think that they saw the tight end as a figure that they haven't had for a while since Shockey was there.
Well, yeah.
So that was kind of a need. You don't really need a tight end.
Well, I think anymore you really do. It's becoming a bigger position in the league.
If you start to 2 tight end sets, like a lot of teams are doing.
Not even that, but it's matchup issues. And I think New England started that.
Yep.
With the late Aaron Hernandez and Gronkowski when they were running that.
The 2 tight end set would kill you.
Right, but at the pass catching tight end, I think that's really a New England thing that everybody's trying to copy.
Well, bigger, stronger tight ends. I mean, that's always been a thing too.
Ingram's a nice player, but it sure seems like Eli's got to be in shotgun every play, like 10 yards back of the line.
Yeah.
Because he has to have time to get the ball out.
But he also has. I agree. But here's another opportunity, another weapon to get him across the middle, give him another option for Eli Manning. That could be the move. Or they just liked him so much they couldn't believe he was still there and changed the whole draft board and said, let's go out and get him. That could be it too.
I don't know. For me, the Davis Webb pick was idiotic. I'm sorry. The guy's not going to play. Yeah. Eli's going to be there for a couple more years. I don't know. This reminds me of, they take Ryan Nass a couple years ago. Same kind of thing. I just don't.
I think the Giants would have been better off moving up and trying to get a quarterback this year. I mean, that's how many more years does Eli have? I mean, three.
I think they maybe could have gone for Mahomes if he fell. I could have seen. I mean, I understand that part of it, but it doesn't help Eli win now. Mm-hmm. I think Eli needs a little more protection.
I agree.
From that standpoint. So we're six questions through our top 10 here. We're gonna get to the other half of this right after this break.
This episode of The Sports Box is brought to you by Mic'd Up Entertainment and DJ Mike Velardi. For all of your event planning needs, make sure you contact Mike at 609-864-5925 and tell him that you saw him on The Sports Box.
Question number 7 involves those Carolina Panthers. Did the Panthers need to go offense with both of their first 2 picks?
I think they didn't have to, but they did to take some pressure off Cam Newton. You know, the McCaffrey pick. I love the McCaffrey pick. Actually, I don't love it because I'm a Bucs fan. So now I gotta stop this guy. I think he's a versatile guy. He can do a lot of things: return to punts, return kickoffs, catch the ball out of the backfield. He's got a little style to him. I think that's a good pick. Adding Curtis Samuel, wide receiver of Ohio State, again, takes some pressure off Cam Newton. They lost Ted Ginn Jr. That was another weapon for him. I think they had to go offense. They want to get some pressure off of him. Besides them adding Russell Shepard and Charles Johnson in the offseason for free agency, you have Greg Olsen back there. They want to try to get Cam Newton a lot of weapons, so it takes it off of him getting hit and him actually crying and bitching and moaning that he's getting hit, not calling penalties.
They didn't touch their defense till the third round. This was Deshaun Hall, defensive guy out of Texas A&M, and their defense last year was 26th in points against. You're in a division, and we talked about this. You're in a division with Drew Brees, Jameis Winston.
Yep.
And the defending NFC champions and the Falcons and Matt Ryan with big receivers that you're going up against. Especially, the offense in Tampa we're going to get to just keeps flourishing.
Yep.
New Orleans is always a problem, and Atlanta gives you problems. Again, I understand the McCaffrey pick, even though I might disagree with it. I understand why.
They need a running back. They need a guy that's versatile.
I get that. I get that. The Curtis Samuel pick to me, I think, is one of those, like, we're going to show you, prove everybody wrong by how we're going to use this guy. Phenomenal, talented player, but again, you need defense.
I understand. You look at Carolina in the past; they built on defense.
Yeah,
and the offense
and a running game.
Right, and their running game. And the running game has kind of gone away a little bit with the loss of some other guys and things like that. And I think Jonathan Stewart's going to be out of there in a couple of years anyway.
Sure,
but in the same sense, you got Cam Newton there. They build the offense around him. They try to make that flourish. Now, do they want to go with the New Orleans mindset where the defense is okay and the offense is just thriving and they're throwing passes all over the field? I think that's the way they're going with these 2 picks here. You look at they're basing more on the offense to pick it up and outscore teams, and the defense to just do their average job and slow a little bit down. I agree. Defense wins Super Bowls. You've seen it in the past.
Absolutely.
So why not, like you said, for the pick? Did they need to go there? I don't think they did, but I think they kind of made it a different level there and made a more offensive team than a defensive team.
I think Monty Fetty made a really good case for why you draft McCaffrey. Whether I agree with it or not, I understand that mindset.
He does a bunch of things.
He does a lot for you.
Correct. When
you're sitting there in that second round and you got 2 picks end up with 2 picks in that second round, and you don't touch your defense.
That's a little concerning.
You're still missing Josh Norman. Again, you're in a division with big wide receivers. You have to be able to stop you.
You could have taken a defensive back earlier than the Samuel pick.
In a draft in a draft this deep,
But again, I think it got enamored that Curtis Samuel was on the board still. Offense, they're talking about offense like crazy. Sure, some of the teams got nuts and did that.
Sticking with the theme of running backs, Mike, how many running backs do the Saints actually need?
They got another one. They got Kamara from Tennessee. Again, this is a situation like Cincinnati we talked about earlier. I think Mark Ingram's on his way out. I think they're going to try to trade him. I don't think they're going to outright release him, but I know Mark Ingram last year got benched for a certain running back. He's had
Tim Hightower.
Yeah,
household name.
Who?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. For Tim Hightower, he's been shuffled around a little bit. He's not in good graces with the coach Payton. So I think Ingram's on his way out. I mean, you got Andrew Peterson now. You got Kamara there, who does a lot of things. I think they're going to mix it up with both of them. Peterson's not going to be there for the long haul. I mean, he's only going to be there for 2 years. So, like you said, why draft a running back? Well, it could fill in for Peterson, but I think Ingram's on the way out. There's no room for 3 running backs in New Orleans.
There's a theme to my kind of analysis here.
Is it a good pick? No.
So, do you, Mike, if you had to guess where the Saints ranked in points against last year?
This is an offensive draft, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I just want to reiterate, the Saints didn't take a defensive player until Marcus Williams in the second round. They did actually. I take that back. They did have Marshawn Lattimore in the first, and Ryan Randall was offensive tackle.
That's right. They did take
So let me reverse that.
Yep.
The Saints did well in addressing the defensive needs with Lattimore and with Williams.
You're just worried about the Kamara pick.
I like Kamara as a player.
Yep.
How many running backs do you need?
No,
you just brought in Adrian Peterson. Mark Ingram, I don't know if Mark Ingram must have run over Sean Payton's dog or something, because Sean Payton cannot wait to not give the ball to Mark Ingram.
Yep.
I don't get that. He was very productive when he had the ball last year and in the years prior. I don't get it. I don't get the thought of when you're over the cap by a couple $1 million to go get Adrian Peterson. Like, that's your biggest.
We're gonna have to get Primo on the show. We're gonna have to call James Primo and see if he gets sorted out. But I think it was another situation of Kamar's still there. Get out. He's still. Let's get him. We gotta get him.
No,
not thinking, like you said, not digging in deep to say, okay, maybe we can get another defensive player to help our bad defense. But no, let's get this running back who's still on the board and he's a good running back. We'll fit him in somewhere.
I mean, he's going to pay dividends for them.
I think he's a good player.
I think in many ways he might end up being their most talented running back.
He could be like a Jai, like that gotten there a couple years and then fit his way into the starting role. He could be that guy.
I just think they need. I mean, listen, they got defensive help nicely, but they could use more. But you can never have enough.
The Saints are also on their also a team that are kind of in reverse order. They need to start getting back to basics and start building that team again. Because Drew Brees, I don't know how many more years he has. He's playing at a high level, but in the same sense, you got to start building this team back again. So maybe that's the first step to doing that.
We will see. Question number 9. So, following the conclusion of the 2017 draft, the Buffalo Bills fired GM Doug Whaley and his pro and amateur scouting staff. I don't really get that.
I don't understand why you fired a guy after the draft.
Why do you? If you have no faith in this person,
they get him out
to
of
do the job.
Draft.
Why are you letting him do the draft for you?
And not for nothing, we talked about it before the show. There might have been an issue of what kind of players they were looking for at the draft, but in hindsight, they didn't have really a bad draft. You got Tre'Davious White, cornerback, who replaces Gilmore. You got Zay Jones, a wide receiver from ECU, who was not a bad player who can complement. They were talking about a receiver. They didn't get Mike Williams or such, but they got Zay Jones, who's not a bad receiver, and they got Deion Dawkins guard out of Temple, so it's not a bad draft. But you had talked about they looking for a quarterback, and you do have to address that issue soon with Tyrod Taylor. Who knows what's going to happen to him?
I think the Deion Dawkins pick was fantastic where they got him.
Yeah.
He could have been. He was in a couple of mocks in that first round, so to get him really late in the second, I think is great. I think they did well trading down.
Yep.
They got a first round pick next year.
Yep.
I think if you really want, if truth is be told, Terry Pagula is the owner of the Bills, also owns the Buffalo Sabres, who are having some own coaching issues right now for the hockey fans. But I think Pagula wanted a quarterback. I think Whaley didn't give him one. I think Whaley traded down, which is, guess what, the right move, the absolute right move. I can't disagree with that at all. Pagula says, you know what, I don't want you here anymore.
You could be right. He could have got so ticked off that they didn't take a quarterback, and that was it.
Well, listen, I understand you're the guy writing the checks here. But what the hell do you know about football?
I understand.
I mean, again, don't get me wrong. The quarterback in Buffalo is a bit of an issue. But that doesn't mean that if you don't believe that these guys are worth the picture going to expend them on, that you go do it.
Yep.
It doesn't make any sense to me. So, again, to me, the timing of it, I think, is a knee-jerk reaction to Pagula wasn't happy with the draft. That Pagula, who's not a football guy, said, I need a quarterback because he thinks he's a quarterback, and he didn't get one. Well, we got Nathan Peterman in the 5th, but that's not here nor there. I think for me, that's... I
don't understand it.
Question number 10. Now, do you want a minute here, or do you want to just like get? Do you want to get in like?
Is it morning? You pass the OJ? It's got vitamin T, vitamin TD. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
So Mike and I were texting back and forth throughout the draft. Mike was telling me how they needed a running back, and then yelled at me when I said that they didn't. That's like, it's okay. We get along. We're like brothers. But Mike, did the Tampa Bay Buccaneers fall into the best pick of round 1?
Love the pick. I think it's a great pick. I am stunned that O.J. Howard fell as far as he did. Actually, I'm not really stunned because Jacksonville, we had heard rumors that they could possibly go after him, but then we obviously thought Leonard Fournette was the pick for them there.
Sure.
The Jets had talked about getting a tight end, and once he got past those two, I think he kind of fell under the radar. I think everybody was enamored with all the wide receivers, the running backs, and everything else going on in the draft that O.J. Howard kept slipping and slipping. I mean, even Cleveland, who we thought might get O.J. Howard, I think we had him at 12.
In our mock, yeah.
In our mock, yeah. But Cleveland moved out of that pick to go to Houston, who moved up to get Deshaun Watson. So, even there, he just kept falling and falling. I think the Bucs saw that as, man, this guy's still on the board. They had him on the board, but I could swear to you, they never thought he would get to 19 with them. But now you got Cameron Brate and you got O.J. Howard there. You run a 2 tight end set, or you mix or match them like we talked about the New England Patriots. And, man, Jameis Winston just has some weapons this year, doesn't he? And Sean Jackson in the offseason.
Listen, and this is why I'm asking the Carolina Panthers to draft some defense, and why I said the Saints need more defense.
Yeah,
because their matchup nightmares all over the place.
If you look at the draft, we talked about it too. The draft got fast and furious. When one wide receiver went, all of a sudden all 3 of them went. And you talk at the cornerbacks, a lot of cornerbacks started to go. I think a lot of teams got enamored, not with a lot of their needs up front, but a lot of the guys that were falling to them. You look at Jonathan Allen fell.
Sure.
You look at a lot of these guys, Marcus Hooker fell. A lot of these guys we had in the top 10 fell all the way down to the 20s and 21. So guys just went off the board offensively, and teams were loading up offensively this year. That was the theme this year. Definitely a theme. Might not have been need, but it definitely was a theme.
Yeah, if you look at the first round, we're going to get back to Tampa in a second here, but if you look at the first round, after Ingram went 23 to the Giants, the only offensive player taken after that was a lineman and Ramsey to the Saints.
Right, because all the cornerbacks
and
went.
Noku.
Yep, all the defensive guys and all the cornerbacks went.
Yeah, I think it's a great pick. I think it's a great pick because we said this coming in when we thought that they might go with Dalvin Cook, who ended up going significantly later in the draft, by the way, to Minnesota. It's give Jameis more weapons. And you talk about who you're going to try to block. I mean, there's really some just ridiculous matchup nightmares down for Tampa Bay. You know what? Their success or failure next year, it is absolutely on Winston's shoulder.
It's on Winston's. Listen, you got a team around him, and you have sent me a couple links that Doug Martin is playing well.
Yes,
and that's the reason why they didn't go running back. I still think it's kind of a leery move on their part. I think they're just trying to hold on to him to save face. Even though he's going to be out 3 games, I think they want to keep him. They gave him big money. They want to keep him. They want him to be the running back for Winston. I don't really agree with it, but that's okay. We'll see what happens. You now have Doug Martin back there. You have Deshaun Jackson back there. You have Mike Evans, who they re-signed for 1 year, which they will sign guaranteed next year. I guarantee you that. Cameron Brate and O.J. Howard now, like you said, it's all on Winston's shoulders now. I think you might have to, in the upcoming years, beat up that offensive line. I'm surprised they didn't do it already. Mm-hmm. You got big money into a quarterback. Got to protect them. So that's going to be the next move. But I think offensive weapon-wise, like you said, it's a matchup problem. The guy can block, and he can run great patterns. He's pro-ready. He runs that pro-set offense in the Alabama system, played the SEC. What else can you want from a tight end like this? This guy's a stud.
Again, their defense played very well last year. I wasn't really upset with anything there. I think I think without question they're the favorites to win their division. And a division where the NFC defending champion still is.
Who?
Oh, the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, they're not.
Did you know that they were up 28-3 in the Super Bowl with 3 minutes left in the third quarter?
Sorry, Redbird. Sorry.
Listen, I love the pick for them because, like I said, it's somebody else that's going to be another release valve for for Jameis. And I don't think it's necessarily like a commentary on Cameron Brate. I think, again, Cameron Brate kind of came out of nowhere last year.
Yeah.
More options. You got guys on the outside, guys on the inside. If Martin can come back and run, and again, I believe, and we talked about this, Tampa didn't really need to draft a running back. I think you may like to, but you don't need to because it's so easy to find that. Listen, what's his name? Jamal Charles still a free agent. Yeah. There's free agents. What I'm saying is there's guys who can fill the hole.
Well, and like you said, with the Bucs drafting running back, you look at the big picture. They probably didn't need it because they already have Doug Martin still there under the agreement. They just signed
money.
Right. They signed Jacquez Rodgers again in the offseason. They got Chris Sims there. They got running backs to fill the need. So it's not, like you said, it's not a need position. Is it a position to draft at 19? Probably not. The tight end position, that kind of fell to them, so that was a no-brainer. I think at 19, to get a guy like this who's a can't-miss guy, is unbelievable value. I mean, how do you look at top 10 guys doing that?
Even adding Chris Godwin in the third round, another receiver threat. Again, I think they did well for themselves, and I think the rest of that NFC South is kind of looking up the
Oh, I definitely think the Bucs are head of the shoulders right now, above the offense right now with their team. And I think they're definitely the favorite to win that division. If they're not, I'd be stunned. And they're going to be Falcons, I guarantee you that. Sorry, Ripper.
Did you hear that the Falcons were up 28-3 in the Super Bowl and lost?
Oh my God!
Did you hear about that?
No, I heard they were all on suicide watching it after the game, especially Matt Ryan.
Ooh.
MVP and yeah. All right, well that's another episode.
It is what it is.
So that's all the time we have. Thank you for watching our 10 burning questions after the 2017 draft. We're going to have more content for you, but remember, first of all, you can always get us on social media if you need to.
Absolutely, and you know where to find us by now, but for those 5 people out there that don't, I'm going to break it down for you. You can find us on Twitter, @SportsBoxShow. Just go to Twitter and hit @SportsBoxShow, and you'll find us there. On Facebook, we're also @SportsBoxShow. So log in your little Facebook app on your iPhone, look up the Sports Box, you find us right there, and you can like us right on Facebook and all of our great content there. But of course, most importantly, this wonderful YouTube channel that you've come across today, make sure that you subscribe, because we're going to have a lot of great content going through what's going to be a great summer here, talking the rest of the NHL playoffs, because we'll see where the Rangers are, and we'll get started on that. Talking about, the NFL never stops. We'll talk a little baseball, maybe. I can get Mike to talk about it. Mike hates baseball. I'm just kidding. Anyway, we're going to have a lot of good stuff, so make sure you are on the guest list and subscribe to the Sports Box.
I am hoping that the Rangers don't go down this week, because not only will you be upset, and
we're not going to talk about it.
You're right. Other people will be upset, but we'll talk to Jim Schmiedeberg on the show, I'm sure, soon. So, and maybe he can yell at me a little more when he gets on the show.
Probably.
That's fine. So thank you for watching. We appreciate it. Remember, at the Sports Box, the only opinion that matters is absolutely where, Brian?
Oh, it's right here.
Oh my God, it's right here. It's still always here. Subscribe, for crying out loud. See you. 1, 2, 3.
Don't forget to subscribe.